What's going on, guys? It's me, Dreamliner Fan HT here, and today we have another model plane unboxing video for you guys. I hope you guys are excited for today's video. Today we got an exciting model to take a look at, and overall I always want to have a model like this in my collection, and I think it's been a while since I last ordered this particular airline from a retail store, and I guess we have it in my collection already. So here is the box right here. This came from Jet Collector, and of course I think this year alone I've been purchasing a lot of Jet Collector. I think the main reason is because they're like close to me and they live in Northern California, more in particular Grass Valley. I know they don't really have like a, like a in-store place at that location. They just only have a warehouse, but I'm just super excited to have this model. Plus they got some really nice, they do have a nice collection of models, some Aero Classics, Gemini Jets, NG models. But we got an exciting model to take a look at right here, and let's see what that model is. So, as I cut the box, and yeah, again, this is an airline I haven't ordered since, I guess, late 2022. It's in this special livery, and I always wanted to think of seeing this in person and get a model of this too, but today's the day. We get to see this model, and of course I do have my invoice. I do want to take that out, just to make sure everything is correct. Alright, good. You just gotta throw that. And as I see what's inside these packing peanuts right here, I feel the model as she comes out of the box. Oh boy, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. There she is. Right here we have the NG models 1/4 scale Qatar Airways Boeing 777-300ER in their 25th Anniversary Retro Livery. Super excited to add this model to my collection. Another Qatar model has emerged out of the open for my 1/4 collection, and yeah, it's been a while since I last ordered a Qatar model, but this aircraft in particular has some significant history for me, and I'm just super excited to unbox this model in today's video. So without being said, let's go over the box and we're gonna proceed in the unboxing from there. So without being said, let's move on to the next clip. And here's the NG Lite 1/4 scale Qatar Airways Boeing 777-300ER in their 25th Anniversary Retro Livery. Now, notice on how I said the word NG Lite, because this particular model is an NG Lite. However, there's something really peculiar about this particular model in general, and it does stand out to the rest of most NG Lite models. But before I explain that, let me go over what NG Lite is. So, NG Lite is basically NG models molds, but they lack some details. So they don't feature antennas, they don't feature rolling landing gear, they do not feature any printed details, like some of their standard planes. So yeah, a lot of collectors are kind of biased about NG Lite because again, they lack some details and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, many collectors would prefer this, and in addition to that, for NG Lite models, those are cheaper than your usual NG standards. So you could get a 737 for $38. You could get a wide body aircraft for $48. That's the difference between a $65 model or a $55 narrow body airplane from NG. So this model costs, from what I know, this model in particular costs $38. Yes, $38 for a wide body Boeing 777. But I added that discount, and excluding the taxes, that price drops down to $35. No joke, ladies and gents, no joke. Getting a wide-body aircraft for $35, that is an absolute steal from that. That's a great deal, and yeah, but there's something in particular about this plane. Again, like I mentioned before, there's something curious about this plane, I'll say. But I'll go over that once I unbox the model, but we're not gonna waste further time about, I already talked about NG Lite already, so let's get started with the box review. So you got the Boeing 777-300ER tiles right there, you got the CGI image of the plane, you got the 25th Years of Excellence logo, you got the various aspects of the Qatar logo, well, the old Qatar logo back then. I know the printing is not really that good because it kind of looks like there's some grain, but it is what it is. You got the Qatar logo alongside their language. You got the 1/4 scale collectible wall stock S metal. You got the Boeing license product and the aircraft registration, which is Alpha 7 Bravo Alpha Charlie. I was able to see this particular plane in Seattle Tacoma International Airport, and it's one of the bucket list special liveries I do want to catch. So it was back in March 2025 is when I first saw this plane, and I got a wonderful departure shot of her, and being able to see that livery for the first time, pretty much in my life, I'll say. I don't know when I'll see it again, but it's really awesome to see this livery in person. Honestly, this has got to be my favorite Qatar special livery, so really cool model right there. Really glad to have it for my collection, and yeah, it'll work well for my current livery Qatar 777 I had back in 2022. And this particular model came out, well, it was supposed to come out in March of 2024. However, I think in September 2024 is what this model in particular is labeled as an NG Lite. However, the standard version did not even came out at all yet when this was released as an NG Lite. And I guess after a year, somewhere around earlier this year, they were able to get this model off the backlog. It was a very long backlog, I would say, but they labeled that particular model as an ultimate collection package. So yeah, really interesting right there. But I do have this NG Lite, so really interesting on how I have this particular model in general. Here is the bottom of the box, right side of the box, top of the box, and the back side of the box. And moving on to the back side of the model, you can see the CGI image of the plane right there. Same design as like the front. You got your warning hazards right there, and the Boeing licensed product once again. And here is one thing to keep note on these NG Lite products. So notice the item number right here. So normally for NG models, they would include item numbers with just numbers. However, this particular plane, they kind of do it similar to what Gemini Jets does. The item number of this model is QTR, or Quebec Tango Romeo 022. In kind of like a longer way, you can let's say the item number as NG QTR 022. And yeah, you kind of I got familiar with these kinds of item numbers, as those were actually the exact wordings of item numbers as what Gemini Jets does. So for most of these NG Lites, they'll start with NG, and then they'll label the sweet letter codes with the airline, and they'll label the number on when it's produced. So yeah, really interesting on how NG was able to get into that direction. But overall, we got a really cool model to unbox, and yeah, let's get started with the unboxing. So, as mentioned before, this is an NG Lite, and I've already explained on the basics of the NG Lite products. Lack of details, lack of printed details, lack of aerials, lack of printed details, and everything. But this particular model is different compared to all the other models from the NG Lite product. As I take out of that box, notice something? Notice something? There's something really peculiar about this model. But here's my CRP. This is from March of 2024. Kind of like an, again, old release. But look at the difference. What is the difference with this model, you may ask? Well, as you can pretty much see, as I try to... Ooh, wow, this actually looks really, really nice. Oh my god, that looks beautiful. Wow. But, as you can see, there's aerial details. And printed details too. For an NG Lite model, and rolling landing gear too. So really interesting right there. So, but let me check the quality controls just to make sure that everything is intact. Oops. Tail, auto horizontal, aerial details. And look at that, she is intact. So look at this. So an NG Lite with aerial details and printed details. This looks like an NG standard to me. But seriously, this looks really interesting to say the least. But still, I'm glad to have this model. This model looks really fantastic, I gotta say. NG did a wonderful job on this particular plane. Wow, that looks really, really cool. But seriously, this model is labeled as an NG Lite, but it has the aerial details and printed details. So basically, it's an NG standard. I don't even know, I'm shocked to see how this particular model has those aerial details, even though it's labeled as an NG Lite. But still, this is a really nice model for my collection, and I'm really glad to have it. What do you want to call this model, a Lite or not? Right here we have the NG Models 1 fronted scale Qatar Airways Boeing 777-300ER in their 20-year anniversary retro livery. This is a really cool model from NG Models, and getting an NG Lite product, well, quote-unquote NG Lite, but with all these details for $35, that is crazy, I gotta say. Normally, an NG standard would never cost that much, or that less, I'll say. But kind of shocking, I gotta say. Again, like this costs $35, but basically what I'm getting is a NG standard version, even though this model is labeled as an NG Lite. So I'm shocked to see this from NG models on what they did with this model, and overall, regardless of that, this model looks fantastic, and honestly, like, from the details NG did, it looks really, really nice right here. So let's get started with the model review. As per usual, you got your cockpit windows right there and your nose shape of the plane. As you can see, I mean, the nose shape on this particular model, I think it looks about okay. I mean, like, for what NG did, it's not really, like, 100% accurate, but it kind of gets that little resemblance of the 777's nose. You got your nose landing gear and nose landing gear door containing the Alpha Charlie registration prefix, and this is where the livery starts. So you got a, I guess that's like a, I would say that's more of a, how can I think of a red? That's kind of like a maroon red cheat line that starts all the way from this side of the plane, and then from here, it runs all the way close to the empennage area of the plane, which I'll go over later down the road. But I really do like these retro liveries on many aircrafts and many airlines. They do have some real nice looks, I gotta say. Yeah, it just looks really nice. And then you got the aircraft name. I think it's some kind of like Arabian, like Arabic name. I'm not really quite sure what it is, but yeah, that's there. You got your One World logo and your L1 boarding door and your L2 boarding door, and this is where you'll find Qatar's business class, which are best in the world, I gotta say. Which is really cool. I would love to try this airline just to fly on business class, but I don't even have enough money in the first place to book this. Maybe some YouTubers have flown on this before. Well, AS Aviation did flown Qatar's business class during his trips back then, so really cool for him. And here is one of the details. So you got some stack port details. There's some P2 details right there. Again, for NG Lite to have this details, I'm shocked to see that. Alongside that, you got your aerial details with the Wi-Fi dome and the top antenna right there. It's, again, just shocking to see this on the NG Lite. That's something new I never seen, and I think this is the only NG Lite product that features these. No other NG Lite model has these kinds of features other than this Qatar 777 Retro. Here's your L3 door right there, and then your GE90 looking very nice, and the size is acceptable for what I'm seeing right there. There's a bit of enough ground clearance. There's your main landing gear as well, and then all your wing details. So here are slat details right there, and then there's your engine pylon. And as I go over the wing for you guys, so here's the wing right there, all your printed details. There's your flaps, spoilers, and your fairings right there, and then there's your aileron details and the rake wingtip of the 333. Looking very nice right there, and I think NG models did a wonderful job on that. Let me just set her down like this, and then let me proceed on to the very back of the plane. So here are some more printed details right there. There's your back dome, your back Wi-Fi dome, and then there's your back antennas right there. There's your L4 door and your L5 door, and this is where like the cheat line stripe ends. And somewhere over here close to the empennage, and then transitions into that slanted look where the tail is. So really cool on how this livery is designed. You got the aircraft registration, Alpha 7, Bravo Alpha Charlie, and the Qatar flag. And then there's your L5 door, if I mentioned it before. Not sure if I did mention it, but yeah, there's your L5 door. There's your bottom antenna right there. And then here we are at the empennage. So as you can see, here is the APU on NG's 777 mode. Now, I did review the Cathay Pacific Boeing 777-300ER from a previous unboxing, but this model in particular is the older NG 333 mold. Because, like, I think with their latest 777 molds, they started updating those to have a much more realistic APU area of the plane. And quite interesting on how they were able to change that. But honestly, after looking at that Cathay 333, I think I would prefer the details on the Cathay 333 than that. This one, I mean, like, it's what it is for NG, but I'm glad they were able to update that 333 mold. Alongside, I also checked on the 222, they also updated that mold too. Anyways, you got your horizontal stabilizers right there, and the Qatar Airways tail, the old Qatar Airways tail, with, gosh, I kind of forgot, it's not an antelope, but It's labeled as Qatar's national animal. I kind of like forgot the name of the animal. Some kind of like, oh, I don't even know, but it's that animal. I couldn't get it at the top of my head, but like on the top of my head. But this particular animal is Qatar's national animals, and this is featured under Qatar Airways tail. And they still feature that animal on their current livery too. Anyways, moving on to the front section of the plane. So let me just position it like this, and then I also want to position my camera too. So here's the front view of the plane. So as you can see, looking very nice right there. There's some nice fan blade details on the GE90 engines alongside the wings, which I think it looks nice. I'm not sure from my camera's perspective if this wing is sitting a little bit higher than the starboard wing is sitting a little bit higher than the port wing, but I think that's coming from the aircraft's weight on this box. But still, I think it does look nice from my perspective if I would level it eye to eye. But I also like the pointing on the cockpit windows too, by the way. So really nice features on NG's models right there. And then moving on to the starboard section of the plane, let me just position my camera again. Come on. It's gonna take a bit, but shouldn't take that long as we're already at the starboard section. So you got your R1, R2, R3, and R4 and R5 doors. And one difference from the one I noticed is this one. So I think on the port section, you could see the Qatar logo and their language right there, the Arabic language. But on the starboard section, you can see the Qatar logo that is in Arabic, which is something unique. I'll say I do like the fact that each side has a different wording of their name. And of course you got the Qatar Airways logo in English right there. So really cool on how that's being detailed on this retro livery right there. You got your forward cargo bin, and your aft cargo bin is somewhere right there. And alongside with that, you have your bulk compartment. Now let me give you guys a top profile view of the plane. Here's the top profile view, excuse me. And yeah, looking very nice right there, all your details right there. Moving on to the bottom section of the plane, let me just reposition it like so. So here's the bottom of the plane. You got the Qatar logo on the aircraft's belly. There's some molded in air intakes too. And then you can see on the port wing, the Alpha 7 Bravo Alpha Charlie registration is right there on the bottom of the port wing. And there's your stand hole right there, which again, this is the old NG 777 mold, so it features the stand hole. While I think these stand holes, because this was back when they had this kind of stand hole for their stands, so they had to place it on there's something that needs to be placed inside there. But since then, NG has updated their 777-300ER molds to not feature the stand hole, because the stand they currently have, I think that's more honestly, I think it looks much more better than the previous one, because I think that has to do with paint scratches from the stand. So I kind of see what NG was doing right there. Moving on to the front section, let me just try to position it like so. So here's the front section of the plane, looking very nice. And then as I give you guys the back view of the plane, here is the back view of the plane. So overall, a very nice model from NG models. Despite this plane being an NG Lite, it still has the NG standard features that I would normally see on most NG models in 1/400 scale. So again, that's really interesting on how NG was able to do that for this particular model and not any other NG Lite model. But I think because of that aircraft being delayed for so long, I guess that's the reason why they labeled it as a Lite. And this model in particular features a standard version of the Qatar 777 Retro. So really interesting right there, but overall I'm really glad to have this in my collection, and it should be very nice for my, soon to be building up Qatar fleets. I don't have the A350-900 yet or A350-1000. I want to try to get the A350-1000 at some point, but hopefully that's in the future. But really nice model right there, and I'm really glad to have it. So with that being said, let's move on to the conclusion of this video. What a beautiful model this is from NG Models. Again, I'm still surprised to see how this is labeled as an NG Lite, but the model itself is an NG Standard. Regardless of that, it's still a very cool model to have in my collection, and I'm looking forward to hopefully feature this model in a future airport update. Who knows when that will be? Maybe if I were to create another airport update series on my channel, maybe I can feature this aircraft, but that's the future that remains untold for myself, and hopefully we can see this model in some videos, I'll say. maybe at a collection video. I don't know if I'm actually planning a collection video, but it's gonna be really hard despite how many models I have. Like, I think I have like over 300 plus models in my collection, but yeah, that remains to be told. But still, really glad to add this to the lineup for my international and Qatar Airways collection. So, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and turn on the bell icon so you won't miss a new upload from me anytime soon. And if you want to see more of my model plane content, then you can click on that playlist, and it shows you all the model content I do, from reviews, unboxings, and a whole lot more. So, that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Good night.